Good morning. Can you believe that we're already at the final day of the conference? This is the appropriate place to boo. Yeah, like, oh, yeah, I know. I'm also feeling that way just about leaving San Diego because it's a really beautiful city. So, well, we hope that you've enjoyed your time here. I hope that you all got to explore the city last night, maybe do some cool stuff. I know several scholars were invited over to, if you stopped by the Brain Observatory exhibit booth, they were saying, hey, come over to the Brain Observatory. Check out some brains. Did anybody check out brains? Anybody? Yes? Okay, nice. I have lots of questions about the brains. Anyway. That's not breakfast conversation. Well, I hope you've had a great time. I hope you've made lots of connections. I hope that you have learned something. I hope that you feel like you're taking away not only things to help you, lessons and skills, some tricks, maybe some advice to help you navigate your STEM pathway, but I also hope that you've gotten to learn some cool science and find out something either in your field or in an adjacent field that has sparked some curiosity for you. So again, I am eager to see where some of your connections from this conference might take you. As you might remember from the opening plenary, this is our third annual Scholars Meeting. Scholars Meetings did not exist for STEM until 3 years ago, right? And so even though it's been going on the program since 1998, the Scholars Meetings themselves are relatively new. So we're excited to see how conferences like this can propel the scholars, your connections, and your opportunities forward. And so we hope you'll continue to share with us your stories. And I'll be telling you a little bit later about some ways that you can remain connected with us. We also hope that while you might be feeling a little tired, I know some of you were up late last night doing awesome networking, right? That's what we call that, networking. I also hope that you're leaving with a renewed sense of purpose and community and dare I say joy. I know that we go through as a country some challenging times to navigate, especially in the STEM community. Right now is one of those times where those of us in the STEM community, we're having to advocate really hard for funding for science and for discovery and helping think about how we communicate what science is and who does science. I'm using the big idea of science there, not just specifically science. And you all are vital pieces of that. And so I'll remind you of my remarks on the first night when I encourage you to think about talking about your science. Talk about it with your friends, talk about it with your families, talk about it in your communities. Please don't be afraid to nerd out, right? And to share with those around you about the work you do. It's a really wonderful way for you to be connected and connect your communities with the great work that you're diving into. So, for the second year in a row, in partnership with Chance to Change Lives, an organization, you heard about it yesterday in the Opportunities panel, an organization dedicated to empowering future leaders in STEM through research and experiential learning, we have offered a competitive research award opportunity to STEM scholars presenting your research posters. The prize is $500 towards the registration fees to attend the 2026 Emerging Researchers Network, or EARN, conference, which happens every spring. So we get this question a lot from scholars. Oftentimes, if you're at this meeting, because PIs are nominating you and there's a finite number of spots across the country for scholars, it's rare that a student might come here more than once, maybe twice. And so you might be thinking, this was really great. How can I do more things like this? Well, one of the opportunities before you is to think about another conference that we host. STEM is in the fall, but in the spring we host EARN, Emerging Researchers National Conference. And it is a national conference that is all about building research capacity for undergraduate and graduate students. It's a massive conference, similar in size to this one. We usually have between 1,300 and 1,400 students. We have hundreds of faculty judges who come and give really incredible feedback to students on their research. There's also opportunities at EARN to actually compete for prize money. for dollars to go towards your research. EARN also allows for student travel awards. So we have a few hundred travel awards. So if you're working on a project that doesn't necessarily have travel funding, you really are trying to get to a conference to present about it, you can also apply for travel funding. And abstracts are currently open, in fact, for EARN, again, which happens in the spring. This upcoming year, EARN will be in Atlanta. So this award, also, this research award, also spurs you on to continuing your research and presenting. So I'm going to invite Dr. Rama Bala, who, again, you heard from yesterday, to please come up and join me on stage. Hi, Rama. And we're going to announce and distribute the awards and congratulate the representatives, or the winners, not representatives, that's recipients. Hi, Rama. So, we're pleased to announce the Outstanding Student Research Award winners. We have 2 winners this year. Can we get a drum roll for the first winner? Please help me congratulate Andre Weaver from Randolph College. Andre, are you here? Did you have an early flight? Did you have a late night? Andre? If anybody knows Andre, text them. Do you know Andre? Text them. Text him and say, you won. Where are you? Are you okay? We have another winner. Hopefully we'll have another winner in-house as well. Drum roll, please, for our second winner. Pleased to announce Ashley Hoskins from the University of Eastville. Ashley. I'm sure Andre's like doing research somewhere. That's what my guess is, right? Congratulations, Ashley. We have a certificate for you. We'll get a photo. Congratulations. Will you get a photo? Congratulations again. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks. Thank you, Rama. All right, we're excited for our closing plenary discussion today. We hope that you've all learned a lot and made a lot of valuable connections over the past few days. In our final panel session, we want to share the wide array of career opportunities that are available to you with a STEM degree. So it's my pleasure to introduce the panel moderator, Nick DiTommaso, who serves on the STEM Advisory Committee and who also is an STEM Scholar alum. Nick is a graduate of Michigan State University with a degree in chemical engineering and economics. Nick is an engineer for Epic Systems to implement and improve clinicians' digital experience with their electronic health records. Nick is an avid sports fan and a film buff who enjoys weightlifting, traveling to sporting events and in his free time, and he lives in Madison, Wisconsin with his wife and 2 dogs. Are the dogs here? I mean, maybe your wife, but also are the dogs here? Fair. Please join me in welcoming Nick up to the stage to welcome our other panelists. You all don't have any slides, right? You're not planning on advancing slides, right? Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Travis. Really excited for today's panel. I'm going to quickly introduce all of our panelists, talk a little bit about what we'll be talking about today and hoping you all get out of it, and then we'll jump right into questions. So first, we've got Regan Fuentes, Platform Operations Coordinator at Roku. Regan is an accomplished professional standing at the cross-section of entertainment and technology. Her passions for efficiency, effectiveness, and bringing compelling stories to the world drives her work with engineers, marketers, and other cross-functional teams. With over 7 years of leadership and collaboration, she brings creative vision and strategic process improvement to all facets of her work. We have Kassidy Lange, a biologist and science coordinator with CSS. Kassidy is a marine biologist whose research focuses on the physiology and restoration of mesophotic ontocorals. She currently serves as a research biologist and science coordinator with Consolidated Safety Services, under contract to NOAA's National Center for Coastal Ocean Science, where she leads both experimental and field-based studies to advance coral propagation and restoration efforts. Her work integrates oceanic data analysis, ecophysiological experimentation, and cross-institutional collaboration, and has resulted in multiple technical reports and peer-reviewed publications. We also have Bria Macklin, postdoctoral student at the Gladstone Institute. Dr. Bria Macklin is a postdoctoral scholar at the Gladstone Institute in the laboratory of Bruce Conklin. In her doctoral program, she worked in the laboratory of Dr. Shannon Garrecht, utilizing stem cell-derived endothelial cells to study vascular regeneration in 3D environments. In addition to this work, Bria studied the role of hypoxia in vascular regeneration of ischemic tissues. As a postdoc, she now works in the development of therapeutic gene editing treatments for neurodegenerative diseases. And then finally, we have Jennifer Nelson, Global R&D Services Recruitment Lead and Technical Supervisor at 3M. Jennifer is a technical manager in 3M's R&D Services organization. Her team focuses on R&D collaboration and technical outreach, which includes planning, organizing, and coordinating R&D recruitment activities with the goal of identifying top technical talent that can be 3M's future investors and inventors and leaders. So with all that, and Travis really got at this, but want to remind you all, this panel's got a diverse range of potential pathways you can follow, academic, non-academic, somewhere in between. And we really put this together hoping that you all would be able to ask all kinds of questions, think about, we'll prep a few questions here, get things rolling, but really want you all to come up to some of the microphones that we have using the app to ask questions in order to get the most out of this. And our panelists are really excited to share not only some of the things that we've been thinking about leading into this, but what would be most interesting for you all. Awesome. I'm going to kick us off with our first question. What is an example of a challenge or barrier you've encountered so far? How did you approach the situation, and what did you learn from the experience? Anyone want to jump in first?
I can start.
Awesome. Thanks.
Okay. All right, it's on. Hi, everyone. I was sitting in this room a couple years ago, so I am an alum on this scholarship. I'm a first-generational college student, and so I think my biggest challenge was once I graduated high school, I didn't really have, the guidance of what to do next, and so I think building a community. My mentors, I went to St. Cloud State in Minnesota, so I don't know if anyone is there for me. Woo! And so I had a really great group of advisors from this scholarship, but I also got involved in undergrad research, like many of you, right away. And so I think building a community and not being afraid to ask questions, because, I didn't know what questions to ask, and sometimes I was a little timid to ask the right questions. So I guess my biggest advice for that would be to, like I said, seek out mentors and peers and, not be afraid to ask questions when you're going into this field, because science can be daunting, but there's people that want to see you succeed.
I'd absolutely agree with that. I was, similar situation, like low-income background. Some family went to college, most people didn't. No one really knew what a career in science looked like. They knew what a career in teaching looked like, education, but not really how to build a pathway in science. And one of the things I was really daunted by was the idea of finding a mentor. Like, it felt so intense. Like, you have to find a mentor. They have to mentor you. It has to be this big engagement. So I would say, don't get too in your head about it, right? Like, get advice, get feedback, put out your needs, but it's not that big of a deal. Also, someone can be your mentor over like a lunch, and you can get what you need and walk away from it. So I think one thing I've learned is to just ask for what I need, say what I need, and don't overthink it too much.
All right, I'll go next. My challenge was a little bit different. So I think it's, although different, pretty universal, finding a job out of school and facing that in the digital marketplace that we live in today. Specifically for me, I didn't have any connections in STEM. None of my family friends, even my peers. I was friends with art students mostly. And my college resources weren't really set up for me to progress into the field that I'm in now, that I was looking to be in. So that's a big challenge. I kind of lived by the saying that you'll never hear a yes if you stop asking. So it was a lot of determination, but also the saying, madness is defined by doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result, right? So taking that into account while kind of pushing my resumes and applications out there despite all of the obstacles, eventually got that yes. So that was one of my largest challenges.
My example is a little bit different. So I graduated from graduate school in 2021, and I was in Baltimore. And I picked up and I moved to San Francisco for my postdoctoral position. And on the second week of me being there, my boss announced that he was closing the lab. And so that was very difficult. I had to figure out what to do. And a lot of the labs that were currently around me were very different types of science. And so I had to kind of navigate and think about, am I willing to change kind of the scientific topic that I work on? And so that was really, just moving somewhere, and then, the lab doesn't exist anymore, but then thinking about switching gears into a different type of science. And so from that, I really learned that, you don't have to really be married to just one idea or one type of science. The scientific method holds true across different disciplines and different fields, and, learning things from, so I was a very bioengineering background, and I moved into more like molecular biology, basic science. But now that I have those skills and those tools, I can still apply them to a job or future career in bioengineering and kind of figure out a way to marry those two fields. So it was very, very difficult to navigate, and I had to find a new lab home and all of that. But it's turned into something really, really great.
Awesome. Thanks, folks. We've got another question prepared, but I want you all to start thinking about if you want to come up and line up at the microphones, or if you want to put questions in the app. We'll be moving to your all's portion of the Q&A here after this question as well. And maybe Regan, we'll start with you for this one, but we'll get an answer from everyone. How do you navigate the workforce as you learn new things and possibly decide that you want to pursue something that isn't what you originally envisioned you were going to be doing?
Sure, yeah. So I think I heard a lot as a student, learning doesn't stop when you leave the classroom. So that held true so far. And in my experience, when starting a role and progressing and learning through that, you come across new subject matters that you might not have thought you'd ever work on or touch on that might inspire you. And that's something I welcome and celebrate. Ultimately, that might send you down a different path, but change isn't necessarily bad, so.
I just kind of gave an answer towards that, but yeah, I think change isn't bad. Like I said, the scientific method holds true. And then I think something that maybe Travis was alluding to a little bit is that, science is everywhere. Science is not just something that you do in a lab. So, talking about your science, thinking about different types of science, thinking about how a career that doesn't seem scientific in nature will involve some science, or how you can bring the scientific method to, solving a problem that you may face in a career that you maybe didn't think you would be in.
So my undergrad degree is in biology. Then I went into information science. Then I was a university librarian for several years before coming to 3M. So I've had 5 different careers if you count the year I worked in arts nonprofits for fun. And I just always remind myself that life is long and there's always going to be change. And if you try something and hate it, you can try something different later. You're never committing to the rest of your life. And the reward for trying something new that scares you can be so tremendous. Like I was not sure about becoming a manager. I was really scared. And one of my former managers just kept telling me, Jennifer, try it. If you hate it, if you're bad at it, you can go back to your old job in a year, in 2 years if you want. And I like being a manager, and I've been quite successful. So I'm really glad I just tried it, because you can't, the worst thing that happens if you try something and fail, it's exactly the same as if you don't try it at all. So just go for it.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I'm from Wisconsin, so I grew up milking cows, which is very cliche of me, but I wanted to be a veterinarian. Ever since I was little, I'm like, I'm going to be a cow doctor. Like, that's my dream job. And I went to college, and I started pre-vet, and one of the things that I was like, okay, I think this will give me an edge, is to do some undergraduate research. So I joined the ecotoxicology lab at my undergrad university, and I realized, wait a minute, I like this. And I think my biggest takeaway is if you don't try things, you don't know what you like and what you don't like. So I did internships with large animal veterinarians, got some of their feedback on whether or not they would go into the field. And I also was taking on all these new experiences. I think saying yes to as many opportunities as you can is really helpful. So any opportunity I got in undergrad, even if it was something that I was like, I don't think I would ever like that, I would try it. And if I didn't like it, then I knew I didn't like it. But I found myself, obviously, on a very different path. So from a cow biologist to a deep sea coral biologist is quite the pivot. But that's because I said yes to everything and I tried it and I love my job now. So I guess my biggest takeaway would be don't close doors. If you don't know what's behind them, give it a try. And if you don't like it, you can always go back to what you do like. So that's my advice.
Awesome. I'm not seeing if anyone's at any of the microphones just yet. So while folks are still thinking, while you all are thinking of your questions, we'll queue up one more here. And then if you don't want to go up to the microphones, you can also put it in the app as well. So I think a couple of you have touched on this in one way or another, but another thing that we like to think about and that we hear a lot about is being able to build resiliency, getting comfortable with being uncomfortable and being flexible to change. Are there any actionable steps or one or two things that you think coming out of this conference our scholars could be thinking about and implementing into the way that they work or they study that will help them kind of build some of those skills for the future?
Good question. I think something I didn't realize was so incredibly valuable until relatively more recently in my career is doing informational interviews with people. Get nosy. Find out how people got to where they got to, if it's someone who you want to emulate or if you're just curious about a pathway. Being willing to put yourself out there and just ask questions is so crucial. Plus, everyone likes talking about themselves, so it's actually a really easy ask to make. Like, oh, you're so successful. Tell me how you got to your place in life. People love that. They want to do that. So it's a really good way to build connections, learn some new skills, learn some possibilities you might not want to have, and like compliment people who you want to compliment.
I would say as far as building resiliency, I think that one thing that has really helped me is having a really good support system. And that support system can be whoever it is, whoever you want it to be. It doesn't have to be just like a scientific mentor. It can be your mother, it could be your dog, it could be a partner, it could be a friend. But just having a really strong support system outside of science has really helped me be resilient within science. Because I actually find it nice to come to people who have no clue about anything I'm talking about and just kind of give it to them in the simplest terms of here's the problem I'm having, and they just give me like a very simple answer that sometimes if you go to someone that's in your field in STEM, they're gonna get super technical, they're gonna like all this, but like sometimes my mother gives me the most simple answers and I'm like, you know what, you're right. And that helps me in my career in ways that she doesn't even understand. So that's really helped me be resilient with all the different changes. I mean, especially if you're thinking of pursuing a career in academic science, there's a lot of moving. So I did undergrad in North Carolina. I did PhD in Baltimore. I'm at postdoc in San Francisco. So there's a lot of moving that, is involved. Not even just like all the different hardships you'll face just in science, but just the, logistics of moving and being away from family and friends. So having a really strong support system is my advice.
Yeah, and to build off that, I think beyond having a support system is also to prioritize your well-being and mental health. I think in the science community, there's kind of this idea that you just need to keep grinding away and keep making steps forward, but obviously you need to set boundaries for yourself. For me personally, I've had type 1 diabetes since I was a kid, and so I've always had to take that into account and put my health first. And so I think a lot of times in the science community, it's hard to set those boundaries. So finding a lab or an advisor or a group of peers that's willing to respect those boundaries, so you can have a good work, research, life balance, I think that will make you more resilient overall. Obviously work hard, but make sure you prioritize yourself while you're doing it.
Yeah, not to echo everybody, but I think the common theme is having a support system and getting to talk to people with different perspectives than yourself. For me, one of the most important things I learned from doing so was that looking back, your career, your educational career, all the way into the end of your professional one, a lot of times it'll just make sense, even if it's not a straight line. Maybe you deviate like we spoke about earlier and try something different, but 3 jobs from then, the person who hires you will think that skill you got, the job that you didn't even want, was the thing that put you above the rest of the candidates. So I think that really builds perspective, and having that mindset and change of perspective is valuable.
Awesome. We've got a lot of great questions on the app, so Travis is going to help with getting a few of those into the discussion. If you have another question that you want to ask, you can also come up to the microphones. We'll be kind of intertwining between the two. Thanks, Travis.
Don't be shy.
Yeah, I encourage you, just like Bria said, please don't be shy. Please feel free to come up to a mic and voice a question into the room. It's great to hear from you all about how you're engaging with these panelists. So one of the top voted questions, coming in at 19 votes, is how did you cope with feelings of inadequacy in your field when you were in school? And if you never felt inadequate, how did you reassure yourself of your abilities? So I think this is oftentimes we hear about this as kind of like imposter syndrome question, but I think there's some specificity here around kind of feeling inadequate or reassuring yourself.
I'll speak first. I think that it's good that we have the ability to build community and look online even to see that you're not alone in feeling that way. And even some of the most established and respected people feel that way all the time. It helps to look back on work, studies, projects that you've done in the past and remind yourself of all the things that you've accomplished. And that really is what's helped me, especially as I continue to learn and grow, knowing that there's always going to be something new, somebody who knows a little bit more, but that doesn't mean that I'm any less.
Yeah, I would say everyone struggles with imposter syndrome. You're going to enter rooms where you're the only one that's a little bit different there. So for me, I'm often one of the only females or the youngest. But just know that if you were invited into that space, you're meant to be there. Your ideas are valued, and everyone around you probably feels the same way. And so, everyone has a little bit of expertise that they can contribute. So even though you may feel like you are inadequate, don't be afraid to ask questions. People love to talk about things that they know a lot about. So that will only make you a stronger scientist. So I would just encourage you to, go into rooms with confidence, and don't be afraid to ask questions, because there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah, I kind of echo that no one on any part of the earth knows everything, right? So if you're in a meeting with people who maybe even be more senior than you, they don't know everything that you know. And so everyone has something to contribute. And then also I would say, like, don't be hard on yourself, right? Like if you're an undergrad, you're not gonna know as much as the PI that's been doing this for 40 years. Like it's just unrealistic. You can only read so many papers in a day. And so understand that in a lot of the trainee positions, that's exactly what it is. You are a trainee. You are training to become a X, Y, and Z. And so remember that, it is a learning opportunity. And then even if you go on into a job in a career field, same thing. No one here knows everything. You have something to contribute, and, people shouldn't, I don't think that anyone will actually expect you to know everything. So ask questions, do your readings. If there's something that you don't know, I think a really good question is, how can I find out more information about that? Instead of just asking that person, tell me this, you can show that I'm engaged and I want to learn. So please help me learn. Don't just, filter, feed me the answers.
I agree with everything that's been said. I think it's also important to remind yourself that humility is a gift, right? If you walk into a room, and we've all been in rooms where someone walks in and they're like, I know everything. I don't need any feedback from the people in here. I have all the information I need. Walking in with some uncertainty gives you an advantage over the person who walks in with absolute certainty, because you're going to be willing to ask questions, you're going to have your own perspective. So yes, come in with confidence, know that you're there for a reason, but also remind yourself that that little bit of uncertainty is a gift, and it's giving you a bit of an advantage as well.
So yeah, we've got some folks lined up. We'll start here in the lower left from the stage perspective.
Good morning. My name is Atu Fawn, a CS major from the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. And my question is, if you had the chance to rebuild your career from the ground up, knowing what you know now, what steps would you take differently or prioritize first?
I'll go. I'll admit to a room full of scholars that when I was a student, I was not very good about taking the opportunity to get to know my professors, sometimes using the resources that the university had, particularly as long as you have them, being there 4 years or more, depending on your path. And so my advice to my past self is to take advantage of those things sooner and to really maximize their use.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that don't be a know-it-all. So when I was a high school student, I was such a know-it-all. I thought I knew everything. This is what's going to happen with my life. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And because of that, I said no to some opportunities that I actually should have explored. And so even though you may think you know everything about yourself, I don't know how old everyone here is. I know there are people across the age ranges, but you change and you grow every single year of your life. I'm not the person that I was 2 years ago. And so, I was 18 making like very deliberate decisions for that. Now a 30-year-old me is like, what were you thinking? So if I could go back, I would say, I think you said that, what did you say? You said, don't close a door before you know what's behind it. Yeah, that's the advice I would give.
That's really good. That's great. So kind of, Bria talked a little bit about how in academia you have to move around a lot. I spent a long time living in places that I just didn't like. So I would have prioritized geographically being where I wanted to be, being in a community I wanted to be part of more. Because while it was fine professionally, there would have been other professional opportunities, and there's just some years where I was pretty unhappy because I was in a place that didn't meet all my needs. So I think there's always a balance between making good choices professionally and making good choices personally. I should have made some better personal choices.
I guess my biggest advice would be making sure that, I did touch on this before, but setting the boundaries in the scientific community. I do feel like sometimes, especially as a student, you go into research and you put a lot of time and hours into it, but then you don't put yourself first. So making sure that you do take the time to build some community in your peers, and that there is life outside the lab. So just prioritizing that would probably be something I would have done better in my undergrad.
Great, thanks, folks. We've got someone down here in the front right.
Hi, my name is Jewel Ferguson. I'm from Minneapolis College in Minnesota, and this question is maybe more specifically for Kassidy. Do you have any advice for an aspiring marine biologist that's from Minnesota? How did you end up in that?
So like I said, I was like a farmer growing up, so probably not where people would have seen me. From a landlocked state, I would definitely recommend, as I said before, getting involved in some form of research. It doesn't need to be marine research. So my undergrad research was in ecotoxicology, so I worked with like snapping turtles, eDNA, and like stormwater ponds. Not really marine biology related, but then when I went to graduate school, I went in and got my master's in marine biology. I was very open to the field and kind of took every opportunity that I could. There is, for undergrad, so I'll like advertise this out there, there is a scholarship that you can apply for. It's the Hollings Marine Scholarship. It is a summer at a NOAA research facility where you conduct a summer of essentially research with a PI on a project that you two work on together. So it's a good opportunity to kind of like get your foot in the door with like federal research. I believe applications are open now. We did have a Hollings scholar this last summer that I worked with. So I think just getting any sort of experience that you can would be helpful, especially coming from a landlocked state. And there are actually a lot of landlocked states that have marine biology programs because researchers will conduct research like internationally. So just be open to kind of moving around and trying to touch base with those guys.
Thank you.
Awesome. We're going to go back to the lower left here, and then we'll come back to the middle.
Hello, my name is Erica Mitchell-Washington. I'm from Agnes Scott College. I'm an economics and chemistry major. And my question actually was about how do you choose where to move to, so I'm actually happy you guys actually answered that one. But I did have a second question. Coming from low income or from first gen, how did you prioritize financial support and navigating that? And what advice would you give for people trying to work as you go throughout school and balance that passion part of the work, but also prioritizing sustaining yourself?
I wish I had realized when I was in college how many paid opportunities there were in STEM. So I think explore that and communicate with people that you need financial support. I was chatting with my younger sister, who is also, she's a chemical engineer, and she was telling me about a scholarship she had gotten her last semester because it was partially merit-based, but the reason she got the scholarship is because she communicated like, hey, I didn't have textbooks last semester because we couldn't afford textbooks last semester. And the faculty member who assigned the scholarship was like, well, you're equal to everyone else in merit, but you're the only one who had need, so obviously you get this scholarship, you get the funding. So I think like I had a real tendency to downplay the need part when I was a student, and you shouldn't. You should be transparent about that because financial opportunities can open up if you have the merit and some need-based as well.
Yeah, I would echo that. Usually, at least at my university, there's like a window in the spring where they open scholarship opportunities. I would recommend applying for every scholarship you can. So I'm also a first-gen college student, and my parents they obviously supported me, but they weren't necessarily understanding what I was doing or what I was going into. So they're like, if you want to go to college, you have to pay for it. And as all of us know in this room, college can be very expensive. So this scholarship through AAS actually really helped me to go to college and be where I am today. But on top of that, I applied for lots of scholarships in my school, and you'd be surprised how few people actually apply for some scholarships just because they might require an essay or some sort of additional supplemental information. So I'd recommend applying for as many scholarships as possible because you would be surprised how many you can actually win if you take shots at them. But also look for opportunities that are paid research. I will echo that, like, the more transparent you are, they might not be at first paid opportunities, but if you express like, hey, I really like doing this, but I'm having a hard time, affording textbooks or tuition, I would love to have the opportunity to work in your lab paid. PIs will take that into account and might try to find funding for their undergrad students. So definitely be transparent and don't be afraid to advocate for yourself.
Do we want to do an online question?
Thank you.
Go to the middle here.
Hi, my name's Jasmine. I'm from Pacific University in Oregon. And my question was on the opposite end of the imposter syndrome. Has there been a situation in your research that reassured you that this is what you're meant to do and it made you feel like this is what I want to do with my life? And at what point in your career did that happen?
I guess I work in a lab every day, so like all of my things are like very like experimental based. But I would say that for me, getting positive results in the lab is one thing that like really assures me that I'm meant to be here. One thing that I really enjoy, unfortunately, is challenging myself. And so, taking on new tasks in a really difficult project that has honestly taken me 2 years to figure out how to do like something that's kind of very simple, but I had to like reinvent how to do it, all this blah, blah, blah. But I actually just got positive results last weekend, and I told my boyfriend, I was like, let's go play the lottery. Like, I'm feeling lucky. Like, I was on high. So I think that just understanding that not just science, but all things in life are cyclical, right? You're going to have lower moments and you're going to have high moments, but making sure that you, in those moments where things are going well and things are working, that you're taking stock of, what did I do towards this? Making sure that you're congratulating yourself, that you're telling yourself, like, I'm proud of you. Don't just look for, positive affirmations from the people around you. Give yourself those positive affirmations, and that's what has really, like, solidified me in pursuing academic science, is that, when I have a good moment, I really try to make sure that I, capitalize on it, and when I'm having a low moment, making sure that I'm talking about it. Like 2 weeks ago, I went to my advisor and was like, I don't know about this. It's not working. I must start looking for jobs. I don't know. But, sometimes you just have to kind of weather through the storm. But making sure that you're not suffering in silence. Making sure that if something is not going well, that you're able to talk about it. And when things are going well, you're able to celebrate that.
Thank you.
Maybe not from a research perspective, but a project. Outside of work, I like to study things that interest me, that are still tech-oriented. And whenever I accomplish efficiently solving a problem at work that would cost thousands of dollars to the company, it's a big win. And it's something that I was able to do via my passion and study. And I think that that's always one of those moments where you're like, I'm in the right place. I'm doing the right thing.
I was on a hiring committee for a comparable role about 2 years after I started my first job at 3M. And seeing the people who were brought in to interview, this is so mean, I'm such a mean person, but I was just like, oh, I would have hired me too. Yeah, they did make the right choice compared to the other people who are applying and getting interviews. So kind of, sometimes comparing yourself to people can be harmful, but sometimes you can look at yourself and be like, oh, yeah, I am in the right place. They were right to hire me. So take those moments and run with them.
So I think we've got one more question in the room, and then, of course, there's been a lot of great questions in the app. If you have questions but you didn't get a chance to come up to a microphone, you can come up and talk to us afterwards, or these are the great types of questions to be asking your mentors, your professors, postdoctoral students, researchers that you know. So keep that in mind if your question didn't get directly addressed today, but we'll end up here on the left.
Hi, my name is Roshan, and I'm a forensic science major at Seton Hill University. And I just wanted to ask each of you how you guys stayed motivated and productive while searching for like a job.
I missed the last part, motivated and productive
while searching for a job.
Gotcha.
That is such a tough one, so I'll start. I feel like in a lot of ways, I never really stopped looking for a job after school for a lot of reasons that are unique to me. Happy to talk about that more somewhere else. But I think that staying organized is the very first thing to do. I'm a bit of a nerd, so I have a spreadsheet usually, and I can get statistics on why I got a no, or if I got a yes, or how far I progressed. And that helps because you can refer to stats on how you're doing. But also your support system, like on an emotional level. Obviously, it's difficult to hear no. But like I said earlier, you're never going to get a yes unless you keep going. So that's kind of how I overcame and addressed that.
Yeah, to add to that, I would say just know the job market right now is really difficult. So you're not alone if you're looking for a job and you're like, why can't I get something? I'm so qualified. There's a lot of applicants out there, so don't let that discourage you. Kind of going off what I talked about before, don't be afraid to try opportunities and apply for things that you're like, I might not like. Like, I don't think I'm gonna like that. So keep your options open. Obviously, the more opportunities you pursue, the more likely you are to find something. And even if you find a job and maybe you realize it's not the best fit, take that as like a learning opportunity to be like, okay, this is a field that maybe I like this, but I don't like this. So for my next job, I'm gonna look for X, Y, and Z. So I would just recommend, don't close the door to any opportunities, and make sure to just use your network. Ask your peers, your PIs, your teachers, any connections you have, like if they have connections. And like I said, just know you're not alone. The job market right now is a little bit oversaturated and competitive. So.
So I'm in a different position because I'm looking for jobs as an academic professor, and there's like 3 available across the country right now. So I would say that I'm actively trying to keep myself motivated. I don't know, I think, just staying organized and then recognizing that it's not you, it's the environment. And so like not taking anything personally. I can't help that there's only a few jobs and there's probably like hundreds of people that are looking for them. But also I would make sure that like if you get an interview, make sure that you communicate what is unique about you, right? Not just your technical background, but what soft skills do you have? What unique perspectives will you be able to bring to a job? Because that's what's gonna set you apart from, every other applicant. No one else has your exact experience. So I would say, if you get that interview, make sure that you, communicate that and make sure that you practice, right? I mean, interviews typically ask in different language sometimes, but the point of the interview is to understand why should we hire you. And so make sure that you practice with people from all different spectrums, PIs, moms, kindergartners, whoever you can find, right? Anyone who can say like, oh, I didn't like the way you said that, or that didn't make sense, right? Sometimes things make sense the way we say them in our head. Like I'm sure maybe what I'm saying right now may not make 100% sense, but if you run them by someone else first, they can help you kind of really craft your speech.
Awesome. We're going to round it out with one final question for the group that we prepared, and then Travis will finish with some other thoughts. So if students could take away only one thing from everything that we've talked about or everything that they've heard this whole kind of session, what is that one thing you'd want them to take away?
I'm going to steal something I saw a colleague of mine say at a panel about a month and a half ago. That's really been resonating with me ever since. No one knows you better than you know yourself. If you know that you are meant to have a career in STEM, that you are meant to be a researcher, that you're meant to be in the lab, whatever it is, you might encounter people who are like, ooh, I don't know if that's right for you. But no one knows you better than you know yourself, so trust yourself and just go with what you know to be true about yourself.
I think I said it earlier, but I think I would say that science is everywhere. I think that, we get caught up a lot in like having a very specific definition of like what a scientific career looks like, but science is everywhere. You can use science everywhere, and even if you don't enter a career that is scientific, you can communicate your science. You can use the skills that you've gained as an undergraduate, as a researcher, and talk about science. I think that enough people in the world right now are not talking about real science. And I think that we need people who just understand kind of like the basics of science to talk about that. It doesn't have to be about, these bigger topics that, are constantly being debated about, but just, talking about basic science helps people understand what is the underlying root of our healthcare system and different things like that. So that's kind of my takeaway, is that science is everywhere. Talk about science, bring science to a career that, isn't necessarily scientific in nature.
I would say my biggest piece of advice is keep your options open and say yes to everything. Your path is never going to be a linear, straight line. It's going to, be curvy, windy. You're going to end up in all sorts of different places. Just stay curious and don't be afraid to ask questions. Like I said, I love my job today. But if you would have told 18-year-old me who was like dead set on being a veterinarian for cows that she was going to be a deep sea coral biologist, she would have laughed in your face. So just make sure that you say yes to everything you can, whether it's opportunities or research or classes. Just keep your options open, and you never know where you land, and all those opportunities will build you into the person you become and the career that you end up in.
Mine's kind of twofold, which is believe in yourself because others will follow once you do. Also, echoing what you said and I said earlier, your career is unlikely to be a straight line. And when I was interning during my university days, we had presentations given by senior VPs and other folks where I was interning about their career journey, kind of similar to what we're doing here today in a way. And looking back, it all makes sense. So even if it doesn't make sense in the present with what you do in school and you transition to something very different, or later down your career you pivot, that's okay. And it's just a better story to write at the end of the day.
Thanks. And with that, we're all set. We really appreciate you all asking questions today and coming to our discussion. So thank you all.